So our next question will start with Assemblymember Skartatos. By the end of this decade, there will be more than 1 million new jobs created in computer programming and technology, yet only 1 in 10 students in this country take computer skills courses. In some countries, it's much higher, mandated computer technology or programming courses at the high school level. So what can we do in New York State to ensure that our students, our young people, play on a level playing field in this very, very critical area?
Yes, indeed. Well, you know, high tech is the way to go, and with that high tech requires high tech education, and this is the reason why we are proposing to create and build smart classes and smart schools to prepare our students for the jobs of the future in the 21st century. This, after all, is a flat world. It's a global economy. Labor and capital flows from border to border without any difficulty, and it's a global competition. Therefore, in order for us to stay ahead of the game, is to provide the education, the training, the technical skills that our students need, and also to instill in them the entrepreneurial spirit that is necessary to come up with new ideas, creative ideas, and products that others need and want to buy. As simple as that. It's about manufacturing. It's about creating, you know, the next generation cell phone or GPS or whatever it may be. It's all about high tech that would keep us ahead of the game and ahead of the curve. And so I support education that supports the idea of STEM, for example, science, technology, engineering, math, including, by the way, art, because art is a major component of that. When you create a product, you also need someone to create and design the box in which the product is going to go into it. So graphic designing, architecture, engineering, it's all part of it. So we need to put focus on that. Thank you.
This question goes right back to the heart of the Common Core, to the heart of the GEA and the funding. We need more engaging activities in schools for our kids. We need education reform. We need to ensure that our kids are participating in subject matter that makes sense to the century that we live in. We need to ensure that what they're being taught is things that are going to help them to be productive citizens, that are not being taught how to be professional test takers like Common Core teaches them, but instead how to become lifelong learners so that they're constantly evolving and able to be productive citizens in our community. Again, if they had more funding, if they had more a different education pattern rather than Common Core, if they had more input from the local businesses, community members, parents, all coming together to sit at the table to determine what the student needs and how they should look in order to be career and college ready when they graduate. That's what it's going to take to put us back where we need to be on the map as far as our students being ready when they graduate and improving their graduation rate. Thank you.
More money into computer science skills. Is that generally? I don't know if any of you guys have been in a school lately. I spoke at a high school yesterday, and I regularly go into the schools. I haven't been in a classroom yet that doesn't have a computer or a whiteboard and iPads in it. Even in our schools, which are considered the best school in the county that I live in, is considered less than average wealth district. So even the schools with even the higher needs districts have computers. They're learning computers. And I got to be honest with you, whenever I'm anywhere with my phone and I can't figure out how to do something, if I find someone who's 12 and under, they can fix it. Go to your settings, pick this, do that, and then I'm like, oh wow, I can read it now. So I'm not so concerned about young people actually having access and understanding technology. They understand it so much better than we do already, many of them, and they learn it in school, and it's a natural process because it's so intriguing and interesting and exciting for them. My son is a computer science major. He graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy. Sorry, Sakima. Maybe this year you guys can win. I tease her. But look, we want Army to win because then no one's going to go to the game anymore, No. So, I mean, it's an honor to have somebody that's actually graduated from probably the premier institution in New York State sitting right here next to me. But and it's a wonderful experience to be a parent. But let me tell you something. I can't get my son sometimes to fix my computer. He calls me up and he says, turn it off and turn it on. So I don't know, how much skills when we talk about computers and issues, kids really are sharp about that, and our schools are on top of it. And while I'm at it, my last, she's telling me to stop. One last thing is, right now, on the ballot in November 4th, you can turn your ballot over, you're going to see a $2 billion bond fund for the Smart Schools Funding Act put out by the governor, and that's going to be for whiteboards, iPads, and more computer technology. So if you think that we need more, then you should vote for that.
So this goes back to the heart of what education's about. So we have tools and technology, and part of the challenge is when we think about our schools and education, not every school is created equal. And I'll go back to my rural analogy. We have many small rural schools that don't have distance learning capabilities, who can't afford to provide AP courses so that their children can be competitive, even with basic college applications. So having the technology is one thing. The other piece is, what are we doing with it? Two, how are we preparing these young people for competition in a global society? And then the last piece, and we touched on this too, is what are the employment outcomes? How are we linking their education and training to gainful employment, to meaningful participation in our world? And that's, so my daughter's taking cybersecurity right now. She's in the Air Force. She's in Okinawa right now. We're exploring to say, okay, Stephanie, does that give you opportunity for gainful employment when you leave? We're researching that more fully. Others, again, are going to rely on specific skills training. I like partnerships. I like to see, we just celebrated NASA partnering with Ulster BOCES. All right, that's cool. So we're going to try to create those linkages. So partnerships, real-world employment outcomes, making sure that all schools are created equal. Those are the things we should be focusing on, not just the tool itself. Thank you.
If we want to have the workforce of tomorrow, we have to create the workforce of tomorrow. If we want to create opportunity for our children, we have to give them the education they need to take advantage of the opportunities that exist out there in the real world. We've heard a couple of comments about Common Core. It's unconstitutional, it's a federal mandate, on and on and on. Basic literacy, basic competency is necessary for anything that we do. It is not in conflict with science and technology education. If we don't train our children to understand the basics, nobody would be able to read or produce this or the great magazine that's out in the lobby. So we need to do our basics. We need to make sure kids understand the basics so that they can apply that knowledge and ability to learn to any subject area, and we're doing it. I talked to Kevin Castle, a Kingston High School graduate, now the superintendent of schools down in Walk Hill. And he told me about his science program that is an all-volunteer program from the teachers and the faculty, administration, and also parents are involved. And he told me that over 100 kids are involved in this in Walk Hill right now. I asked him how many of them were girls. He said, not as many as we would like, certainly not half. The Rhinebeck Science Foundation. The Rhinebeck Science Foundation, started by parents. I walked into that lab, we got them a little grant to buy some equipment. I walked into that lab, 50% of the people in that room were young women. They were testing windmills. They were building and breaking bridges to find out the stress points. They were creating cars that could reduce the friction to run across the floor. Young women involved in science. The Red Hook Education Foundation. We're going to try to replicate this across Ulster and Dutchess County. We think there's an opportunity there. Pete mentioned the BOCES partnership with NASA. That's another way. But let's also remember two other institutions that we have here that are extremely valuable and have been for generations. Our state university schools, a $47 million science building at SUNY New Paltz, and finally, the recognition that Ulster Community Colleges deserve for many, many years for training that workforce of tomorrow. Let's invest in education to make it happen. Let's not use slogans about Common Core. Let's not create AstroTurf opposition. Let's just make sure we create the opportunities for kids for tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. A million new jobs over the next 10 years, is that what you said? That's a lofty goal considering the job creation of the past 7 or 8 years. Unfortunately, if there is a million new jobs created, I don't think a lot of them will be here in New York unless we all work together up here on this table to reform property taxes. Our children, again, when they graduate, go elsewhere to seek opportunity, and we have to do something about that. But there is some things we can do in our schools to improve it. And one of the things is that, I mentioned it before, is the increase funding or increase engineering and technology. We also need to have 3 different diplomas once they graduate, one for academics, one for STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and an academic Regents diploma. And we should ensure full funding for special education. I think those kids need the help the most so they can compete in tomorrow's world. Thank you, and